Oh, hey, it's the Butcher. What's up, man? How you doing? Oh. Well, it was nice seeing you, buddy. Take it easy. Hey, guys. Welcome back for another Diablo IV Necromancer Bone Spear build guide. I have a bit of an update. As you can see, my character is now level 98, a little over 98 and a half now. The last guide I made for this build was at level 71. Since then, I have found many things that make the build even better. And while I'm sure there's a lot of websites and stuff like that have probably already covered this, I wanted to make a video and talk about why all of this works together so well, so that you, as a necromancer enjoyer, can also replicate it and do literally upwards of 8 million damage. Yes, 8 million damage in a single bone spear. Hopefully we can capture it in this video. I'm going to show you how to fill your screen up with millions of damages across the board. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is my ability bar. I have corpse tendrils with the modifiers that allow for 50% slow and a 30% chance to drop a blood orb when damaging enemies. I have corpse explosion, just 1 rank in it, just for the simple use of it. Bone prison with 1 rank in it with the modifiers of 15 essence plus 5 additional per enemy trapped, and fortify for 5% of base life for each enemy trapped by bone prison. Blood mist, just 1 rank in that as well. That is what I call our panic button. Whenever you get crowd controlled and you need to get out quickly, you press that button and it will give you immunity for 3 seconds and allows you to move through everything. Granted that it's slow, but it gives you 3 seconds to recoup yourself. And then I have Bone Storm, the ultimate ability. I don't care about the damage on Bone Storm. That's not why we're using it. We're using it specifically for the modifiers. 15% damage reduction while it's active and 20% increased critical chance, which is big for when you activate it. You will use that against bosses and large groups of elites. And then, of course, our baby Bone Spear with the modifiers that allow for it to break into 3 shards when it hits a wall or the barrier of the screen, and it bounces back into those shards. And then the 5% increased critical strike chance, and if the primary projectile critically strikes, it breaks into 2 more additional bone shards, which just adds so much damage, especially to larger targets. Okay, so let's talk about the order of operations for simple combat with these abilities. Generally speaking, you want to open up with a Bone Spear. When you hit an enemy with a Bone Spear, you're going to basically have a really high chance of killing the target right away. Try to aim for just a lowly enemy. Don't aim for the elites. Don't aim for a boss if possible. Aim for a lowly enemy, so that way you can right away corpse tendrils and bring everything into play with that. When you hit everything with corpse tendrils, that's going to give you a lot of damage. We'll talk about why with the gear in a little while. And then after you corpse tendrils, if you get a large group of enemies in there, you need a little bit of either just a quick trap for the large group of enemies so they don't come at you, so you have a moment to stay away and just do your damage. Or if you just need that essence return and that fortify, that will give you right there, right after corpse tendrils, hit them with the bone prison, and boom, you're instantly tankier, and they're all stuck in one spot. And that's pretty much it. From there, you just spam your bone spears. Of course, you can use corpse explosion to regenerate your essence if you need a little bit of extra regeneration on top of it. But the big thing about corpse explosion is actually amplifying your damage, and I'm going to show you where we get that as well. Okay, so let's talk about our gear. The first thing I have is Deathless Visage. This is important because it adds a lot of damage to your bone spear and covers a very large area. I'll show you here. You can see that it's a couple explosions here. You saw 3 going that way. And if you happen to have a windy affix elite on screen and you throw the bone spear through it, it's going to cause a very large amount of these explosions that will do massive amounts of damage in that area. So definitely it kind of, it sucks that they're there, but you can definitely exploit it for large amounts of damage right there too. The chest piece I imprinted, the percentage of armor gained for 4 seconds when you deal damage, all the way up to, this isn't a perfect roll by any means. I don't think any of my rolls are perfect, but this gives me 40% extra armor, which when you're in a big fight and you're dealing your damage, this gives you a lot of extra tankiness, so that way you have a harder time dying, which is always good, right? I do like that on there. Here we have the legendary gloves. The primary thing you want to focus on with gloves is getting ranks of Bone Spear on there and critical strike chance. If you can get critical strike with bone skills or just critical strike in general and some intelligence or something like that on there too, that's great. But make sure you prioritize ranks of Bone Spear and critical strike chance. The higher the better. On here, I do have imprinted. I actually messed this up, but it's still working out just fine. I have the aspect of the aspect of splintering, which makes your Bone Spear incredibly good. As it reads, Bone Spear's primary attack makes enemies hit beyond the first vulnerable for 2.3 seconds. This one, it goes all the way up to 2.5. Bone shards from Bone Spear deal 90% bonus damage to vulnerable enemies and pierce them. Generally, or normally, when a shard hits an enemy, it stops right there. This allows them to go all the way through them, so you're just hitting large crowds with large amounts of damage across the board. And of course, they're vulnerable, so your spears are only going to keep doing more damage as you throw them, which is always nice. Here I have Temerity. I actually didn't have these for the longest time, right up until recently, and this has added so much survivability to my build. I know it's hard to get uniques, but this is actually really great. It says, effects that heal you beyond 100 life grant you a barrier up to X amount of your max life that lasts for 8 seconds. Even at the low end of 40% on this, 40% of your life as a barrier, whenever you heal beyond 100 life, is massive. Specifically, because as you can see here, all I have to do to activate it is use a potion. And then boom, I get a big barrier. Look at that barrier, that's massive. A huge barrier just for going beyond 100 health. And of course, because you're going to be creating a lot of blood orbs, a bunch of life orbs out there, you're going to be going over 100 a lot just because of that. And to create those, I will show you in just a second. Next up, we have Penitent Greaves. This is a very easy way to crowd control large amounts of enemies. You can see the frost trail that I'm leaving behind here. Whenever an enemy steps into that, they're affected by chill, which is a type of crowd control, which will add, for this, I have 7% extra damage, but it has a max of 10% extra damage. But crowd control is going to amplify our damage even further, and I'll show you that as well. This is my my choice of weapon. I choose two-handed swords. You can use a scythe as well if you prefer. A two-handed scythe I would recommend because you do get life on kill, which can help Temerity. Every time you get an enemy killed, you get that life, and so therefore it'll keep proccing Temerity there too. I prefer to just go straight damage on this. That extra 52.5 critical strike damage is huge, and so that's what I went with. Now this sword is not the greatest. I do have a lot of decent rolls on here, but something that I would much prefer instead of damage to close enemies, I would rather have another just straight up critical strike damage stat, but I could not get that. I could not roll that on here, unfortunately, because I re-rolled something else into vulnerable damage, and I've just stuck with that since. So you can see that the stats on this just add a lot of damage, and because of this sword, I do try to get close to the enemies for that extra 61.5% damage. And then the imprint on here is the aspect of Grasping Veins, which you gain 38% 20 to 40 increased critical strike chance for 6 seconds whenever you cast Corpse Tendrils. It doesn't even have to affect them. You just cast it, and that's extra critical strike chance, which is massive. And then you deal X amount bonus critical strike damage to enemies damaged by Corpse Tendrils. That's damaged, not slowed nor stunned, just damaged. So if they're in the range of it, they're going to get hit by it. So they automatically are taking that much more critical strike damage. This is a huge spike because it is multiplicative, as you can see. I did have the aspect on here, the aspect of splintering, and this swapped on the gauntlets and the sword. I accidentally put these this way, but this is still a great damage spike, so it's fine. I didn't mean to do it this way. Both ways work well. It's just whatever you choose. I think this has higher spikes, like the way I have it set up now, but it's possible, that in my mind, the other way allows you for a higher minimum damage, if that makes sense. At least that was my experience. Maybe it was just lucky that way for me. Anyway. So that allows for a lot of multiplicative critical strike damage, which is going to skyrocket your damage into many millions. And of course, we have our you know, I have a lot of the red gems. Are they rubies? I think they're rubies for the max life. I do have one damage reduction while fortified here, just for, you know, I already have over 11k life. I just threw that on there for the sake of getting a little bit of extra damage reduction on there. And yeah, my amulet, I have the aspect of serration on here. What you want to prioritize on this as well is try to get some bone skill damage on there. And then ossified essence. The aspect of serration is very rare. It's a really difficult time to find. I've only found it 3 times. I'm level 98 and I've only found it 3 times. I don't know if that's bad luck or if it's just that rare, but for me, it's been that crazy. The ossified essence key passive also increases the critical strike damage of your bone skills by 1% per essence above 50, up to a max of 60 on the top end roll. I have 56. This just allows you to have a large amount of extra damage until you get below 50 essence, which most of the time you're going to be above 50 anyway, so pretty much you're always just seeing that extra critical strike damage on there, which is huge. The first ring here has the aspect of exposed flesh. Something you do want to prioritize on your ring is critical strike chance, and try to get some critical strike damage on there too. You can see I have some good rolls of critical strike damage with bone and just base critical strike damage as well. I have the max critical strike damage, actually. I didn't realize that. And then I have some additional blood orb healing. That just kind of helps keep my health up. It gets those barriers up higher because it stacks with temerity. And then I have the aspect of exposed flesh, another very rare aspect, really hard to get. I've only found it a few times as well, and this is the best roll that I found so far. Up to 10% chance to generate 42 up to a max of 50 essence when hitting a vulnerable enemy with your bone skills. Considering that we have this here, making all enemies around us vulnerable whenever they get hit, this just allows us all that extra opportunity to get that lucky hit and all that essence on return. This procs a lot more than you'll realize because it does proc on all of the bone shards that return as well. So say if you get a critical strike, that's returning 5 bone shards. That's 5 different instances of 10%. Yeah, 5 different instances of 10% if they hit different targets. So that's pretty great. I like it. Plus they pierce, so it's getting more hits, more rolls on that 10%. Now they don't stack, that's not how it works. It's 10% each time. But yeah, it's really great. And on here, again, prioritize critical strike with bone skills, critical strike chance, and critical strike damage. I do have vulnerable damage on here as well, which is really nice. I really like this ring a lot. And then I have the aspect of the umbral on here. This is a very important piece of this build as well. Restores 1 to 4 of your primary resource when you crowd control an enemy. Now, I know that this one is very difficult to find as well, but there is a, what's it called? A codex version, codex of power version. It only gives you 1 of the resource on return. Where is it? And I do believe you find it at Champion's Demise. Where is this? Aspect of the Umbral, yeah. Champion's Demise in the Dry Steppes area. So even if you only have 1, you know, when you're just getting started, this is a very good thing to have. Definitely go for this if you can't find, you know, a higher roll on a ring elsewhere. Definitely just go grab this, imprint it on a ring in the meantime until you find a better version. And so that is our gear. Now you can already see how a lot of this is stacking together, but let me show you the Book of the Dead. I'm going to show you my skill tree and my Paragon board, and then talk about how everything stacks up, and then I'm going to show you gameplay of how it all works together, so that way you could see the actual build at work. So Book of the Dead, I have Skeletal Warrior's Sacrifice for the extra critical strike chance. I have Skeletal Mage's Shadow sacrificed for the 15 extra max essence. And then I have Iron Golem sacrificed for 30% increased critical strike damage. You know, those overall aren't big deals, but they do help out in the long run. That little bit can go a long way. It adds up fast. So it's definitely worth doing that. And then my skill tree. Now, if you need to pause the video at any time to look at any of this closer, go ahead and do so. I will quickly discuss, you know, just because I know it can be hard to see if you're on mobile or just a small screen in general. And I'll just quickly discuss everything as I go down the tree here. I have 1 point in bone splinters and 1 in enhanced bone splinters. That's literally, I don't use those at all. That's literally just to get to the next part of the tree. So don't even put those on your skill bar. If you have the essence return, you don't need these at all. I will say that bone splinters can be good in case that you do have a situation where you need to regenerate extra essence. Specifically, if you're fighting a world boss and you're not generating enough corpses, or if you're fighting, a main story boss, stuff like that, bone splinters can help you out there if you need to. Of course, we have Bone Spear maxed out. I do have +4 on my gauntlet, so it makes it rank 9 out of 5. And then I have Enhanced Bone Spear, and then Paranormal Bone Spear. I have 3 points in Unliving Energy and Imperfectly Balanced, and Hewed Flesh. Hewed Flesh is big for helping us create more corpses, so that way we can, consume and use corpse tendrils. I have 1 point in Blood Mist. Again, that's our panic button, or our oh shit button. Like if you get frozen or stunned, you can press it and then it'll allow you to remain immune for a few seconds so you can get out of that moment. I have 1 point in Corpse Explosion. Again, that's literally just so we can use it. We're not using this for damage. We're not using it for anything other than just consuming corpses. That's it. 1 point in Bone Prison. We don't need anything more than that. We don't need big stats on this. And then we have Enhanced Bone Prison for the essence, 15 essence plus 5 per additional enemy. And then Dreadful Bone Prison for the Fortify, 5% base life for each enemy in there, which is huge. I have 3 points in Grim Harvest for essence return on consumption of corpse with Corpse Explosion, and then Fueled by Death for that extra damage after consuming a corpse, which is beautiful. Next up, I do have 3 points in Death's Reach, but that's strictly from items. It deals 12% increased damage to distant enemies, which is, that's nice, but not intrinsic to the build at all. On the next part of the tree, I have Corpse Tendrils. I do have that rank 5 out of 5, so that way it brings the cooldown down as low as possible. Enhanced Corpse Tendrils for the 50% slow for enemies that are within the reach of it, so that way it has an easier time grabbing them. And then Blighted Corpse Tendrils for that 30% chance to drop Blood Orbs, which is huge for giving us fortification en masse. I love it. I have everything in the bottom tree here: Serration, Compound Fracture, Rapid Ossification, and Evulsion. This just gives us more vulnerable damage. Bone skills have, more increased critical strike chance for every 10 essence you have upon cast. It just really ups your overall critical strike chance when you open up a fight, which just makes the fight easier. Critical striking 10 times gives you more damage. And then every 100 essence you spend reduces the cooldowns of your bone skills by 1.5 seconds. This specifically helps out with Bone Prison and Bone Storm. On the next part of the tree, we have Bone Storm and the 2 follow-ups, Prime Bone Storm and Supreme Bone Storm. Those are very big for helping out your damage when you need it the most. And we have Standalone, increased damage reduction by 18 per second, reduced by 2% for each active minion. And because we're not using minions, we get that full 18%. This is big. Do not use minions when you have Standalone. Get that free 18% damage reduction. And then after that, this gives us 60% extra stats on our sacrifices, which is very nice. We like that. And then in the very end, our key passive is Ossified Essence. Your bone skills deal 1% increased damage for each point of essence you have beyond 50 upon cast. This allows us to hit very hard to open up the fights and stacks very well with what we have here on the aspect of Serration on our amulets, because that also helps with critical strike damage on top of it at the same time. It's basically just adding another big part of that so we can open up with some massive damage right away. Now, the Paragon board that I have, I do not feel like this is optimized. I feel like I could do this better, but I'm going to tell you how it is, how I have it right now, just so that way you can see what I have going on. The starting board here, I do have the Blood Drinker Glyph, and this is just so that way we can get fortification from Blood Orbs. You need to get this right away because this is going to add so much survivability to your class. While this build is pretty much all about the glass cannon, just nuking enemies for as much damage as possible, without a little bit of fortification, you're going to die a lot. And this allows you to have so much survivability. So definitely do not skip out on this and make sure that you get that 40 intelligence as quickly as possible, because it's going to double the fortification that you get from your Blood Orbs, which is huge. I path up this way, you can see which ones are highlighted. I'm not going to talk about every single thing, The next board is the Bone Graft board. Hitting enemies with bone skills increases your damage by 1% and your max essence by 3 for 8 seconds. Stacks up to 8% increased damage and 24 max essence. That's basically a free Bone Spear. Yeah. My Bone Spear costs 27. So when you get this going, you're 3 off of a free Bone Spear in the middle of a fight. So this is very nice. That's, you know, that's an entirely extra Bone Spear, which is huge. And of course, that extra damage is nice too. We do have the sacrificial socketed glyph on here. This allows us to have more damage with no minions, which is nice. We like that. We're not using minions, so why not take the free damage out of it as well, right? The big thing about this board, though, isn't even these things. It's not even these. It's this over here. The rare node Reinvigorate. 16 max essence, plus 2 essence on kill, and another 8 max essence if the requirements of willpower are met. Now this, you cannot skip on. You can build these boards however you want, but please do not skip on this. For me, this is the most important part of the Paragon boards. 2 essence on kill, and then you get, you know, these max essences here, but then there's also a +1 essence on kill here, and another one right here. So you get +4 essence on kill. That includes all enemies across the board. All of them. So say you throw 1 Bone Spear, it costs 27 essence. It hits, I don't know, let's say it hits 7 enemies, and they all die. You're getting all that essence +1 back. You're basically killing them for free, and because of how much critical damage you're going to be doing and how high your critical strike chance is, it's very likely that you're going to make this happen all the time. It's beautiful. Do not skip on that. You can see all this other stuff as well. You know, increased critical strike damage with bone, 8% max life, extra armor, critical strike chance with bone. Just, you know, the important things to not skip out on. You can build yours however you want to, but you can see which ones are highlighted here if you want to copy my trees. The third board I have is the Scent of Death. With at least 2 corpses nearby, you gain 15% damage reduction. Extra survivability is gorgeous in the middle of a fight. But with no corpses nearby, you do 15% increased damage. So when you walk up to a group of enemies, you're doing 15% increased damage just because they exist near you and happen to be alive. That's it. And when they die, when you have 2 corpses near you, you change from that 15% increased damage to increased damage reduction when the fight is underway. That's nice to have. And then the socketed glyph I have on here is Essence. This gives you a lot of critical strikes to enemies that are not healthy, so it helps you finish out those fights. A lot of critical strike damage with core skills, and then for every 5 dexterity purchase within... Oh, I'm sorry, I just said that. You get that 7.9, or well, I do have them leveled up, so I don't think it's the default 7.9, but you just get a lot of extra critical strike damage on your core skills, which the Bone Spear is a core skill. Gorgeous. Of course, make sure you go out of your way to get these additional requirements because it doubles up your effects a lot, which is always nice. Again, if you want to build this up like I do, that's your freedom. You can skip through a lot of this if you don't want it. You know, if you want to get to a different board or whatever, that's all on you. But these things are, you know, they do add a lot of extra critical strike damage and damage to healthy enemies. Like 50% damage to healthy enemies on the rare node Ruin is huge. That's so nice. And the fourth and final board is Flesh Eater. Consuming 5 corpses grants 40% increased damage for 6 seconds. Yes, 5 corpses for 40% extra damage. This is your boss killer. This is your elite pack killer. This is something that you walk into a fight, you throw a Bone Spear into a line of enemies, try to create as many corpses as possible, consume them, and then you use Bone Storm, Corpse Tendrils, and then you throw Bone Spears at the big enemies, and you do, or for me at least, upwards of 8 million damage sometimes, which is huge. And then the socketed glyph here, we have Control. I wasn't so sure about this one. I wasn't so sure that I wanted to do this, but it's actually working out okay because I do have these boots. Penitent Greaves. You and your minions deal 10% increased damage to slowed or chilled enemies, or instead 20% increase to damage to stunned or frozen enemies. So Corpse Tendrils, when it goes off, it does stun targets. So that's a lot of extra damage there. And then of course, if they happen to be frozen, it takes a lot for the Penitent Greaves to freeze an enemy, like a lot. But if they happen to be frozen, that's another 20% damage anyway. And then, you know, the extra 5 intelligence purchase within range, 7.5% increased damage to crowd control targets is always beautiful as well. You can see I have it up to 112.9 right now because I have bought all the intelligence within range. All the intelligence within range, so it just gives me a lot of damage. And again, crowd control on this build is corpse tendrils and our penitent greaves. So if they're chilled, slowed, stunned, frozen, anything across those boards, across the board there, that's 112.9% extra damage. Massive. I didn't like it at first, but now I love it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I do have some more points on the way, but those are the important things on this board here. 50% damage to injured enemies, you know, that's nice. 32% damage to elites, that's going to help you level up quicker at the end of the game. There are some other stuff around for, you know, some more damage to elites here as well. I got this one up here, not for the poison resistance, but the extra 100 armor. And I'm considering getting that extra willpower for the extra poison resistance, but I don't know. I might go back down here and get some of these for these magic nodes, because this adds to, you know, 114% to all magic nodes in there. So, you know, some more damage on there would be nice. Maybe yeah, those damage ones are actually nice right there. Maybe some extra dexterity for the extra critical chance, all that stuff. So those are my Paragon boards. Now, I do have all of these leveled up to at least 15. That's why they're expanded. You level up glyphs. If you do not know, you level up your glyphs by doing nightmare dungeons. And at the end of the nightmare dungeons, you can allocate experience to the glyphs of your choosing. If you get them to 15, they will expand their radius, which helps you hit those additional bonuses a little bit easier. In fact, for this last one, that's something that upped my damage so much that I hated it to loving it just by leveling it up. Very, very nice to have. And so yeah, that is the overall build. Now let me show you what this build is capable of. Let me turn this up a little bit so you can hear. I'm going to show you the order of operations and how I enter these fights, so that way you can see me apply it and you can watch the damage numbers fly. Now, what I like to do is aim for, you know, some weaker targets, so that way, you know, they go down. And then I will corpse tendril, and when it brings it in, I hit it with the damage. That was 2.6 million. All I did was press 1 and then right click, and that was 2.6 million on that guy. Poor guy. Now let me stack up. You can see here, this is the one on the glyph, the legendary node, where you consume 5 corpses and you gain 40% extra damage. I build that up to 4. What I'll do is I'll consume corpses before leaving this pack and going to the next one. I'll get 4 ready to go, and then I'll walk to the next fight. I will hit a target to kill it, and then when there's other targets around, I'll hit corpse tendrils, get that 5th one, and then boom. Look at that, 4.1 and 4.2 million. That was a 94,000 non-critical hit. 830,000, like, without any extra bonuses going on. Let's consume 4 corpses, so we're ready to go there. Let's go ahead and get the next group going. We got a bunch of corpses here. Let's tendril. Explode. I think that was a 5 million. I saw a 4 million in there. So you can see that it's very easy to operate this build. All you need to do is just keep up with your corpse consumption, so that way you can, you know, get ready for the next fight that's going to happen. A casual 1 million. Let's corpse tendril. Let's explode this. Look at that, a 5 million damage proc right there. And so as you can see, it's very easy to get the damage going on this. Very, very easy. Let's go ahead and get this big group going. Oh yeah. And then of course, when you use corpse tendrils, you see all these blood orbs. You see all the fortify there, but also because it's healing me beyond 100 health, I picked up those blood orbs, and now I have a 5.5k barrier on top of it. So while this build is very glass cannon, when you are quickly going through these crowds of enemies and you keep your barrier up, it's going to give you a lot of free tankiness as well. Which, who doesn't like that? 5.8 million there. I'm hoping that we can see a 7 or an 8 million. I saw a couple of those earlier. Let me get some corpses going. Oh, they all died. Sometimes the corpse explosion surprises you with the damage, but again, the corpse explosion is not our main damage here. Now, something else I want to show you, I'm going to go ahead and force a crowd control moment when I find a trap so I can show you that blood mist will get you out of it right away. The reason why we have this quote-unquote oh shit button. So basically, when you get crowd controlled by like a trap, or you become frozen in a wind wall, or just by, you know, an enemy that instantly freezes you, you can just press the button that it's on, it'll break you right out. Look at that. Instantly out of there. Usually I'd be stuck there for a couple of seconds, but that allowed me to escape it instantly. This you never use unless you need to get out of crowd control. This is what's going to keep you alive and what helps make this build viable for hardcore difficulty. Keep that in mind. Hey guys, quick post-recording future Josh edit here. I forgot to show you guys what the aspect of the umbral can do when you combine things like corpse tendrils and bone prison into the mix. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and spend all of my essence here really quickly, and then show you how much you can build up with a group of enemies. I need just enough for one bone spear here. Let's gather some enemies nearby. Everyone gather around. Everyone gather around. Let's go ahead and do the corpse tendrils and then a bone prison. And look at that. We went from, you know, just enough for one bone spear to near full with just those two abilities. And so that's something the aspect of the umbral is very good for, and it's only going to get better the higher the roll on it is. So try, I know it's rare, but try to get it. It's so good. Anyways, back to the video. Go ahead and just move on through this guy. Let's get this elite up here. I saw 6 million in there. 4.7, 1.1. Oh, here's what I was talking about earlier. You see all those explosions from the windy wall? That's because of my helmet. Whenever you throw a spear through those wind walls, it slows down the spear, but those orbs from Deathless Visage, just they like anything in that vicinity will just take so much damage. So much damage. It's absolutely worth throwing them through there. Anyway, let's continue on. Let me go find some big groups of enemies here. Here we go. I saw an 8 million in there. You'll have to slow it down the video, but it was underneath the word vulnerable. There was 8 million damage right there, which is massive. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and do the rest of this dungeon at normal speed, so you can just kind of see what this build is capable of. You don't have to take it slow. I'm only taking it slow so you guys can see the number values here. 7 million. Oh my god. You can see the damage spikes are extremely real. Hit these levers so we can go on to the next area here. Hey, get out of here, man. Even when you don't critical strike, your base damage is going to be so high that you just kind of take out basic enemies like that extremely easily as well. Which is nice. Really nice to have. Go ahead and do this. 6.9 million, 6.2 million. You can see that this build just absolutely destroys things. And I do fully expect Blizzard to nerf this at some point soon. I don't see why they would let this kind of go on in its current capacity. These are the highest damage numbers for any build that I've seen so far, and the way that everything stacks together with Essence works extremely well. So I don't see it surviving much longer. So make sure you build it now and have some fun with it, you know what I mean? You can see even when I'm not focusing, when I'm not even focusing on building up the extra 40% damage, the damage is really high anyway. Like, several hundred thousands at minimum. And it just kind of kills everything. Like, I'm not even trying to up my critical damage, and I'm still doing over 1 million a lot of the time. You can see all these millions flying across the screen. 2 million. I'm not even doing anything to up my damage any further. These are just strictly the bone spears themselves doing the work. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Gorgeous. And something you want to make sure you're doing when you do have a large group of enemies like this running around, try to run around as well. Try to run around when you have Penitent Greaves, because when you run around, you're just causing more crowd control to go everywhere. If they step into that, they get chilled. You're doing, you know, 7 to 10% extra damage from the boots themselves, but also getting all that extra crowd control damage on there as well, which it just makes your life that much easier. You see how I was going from like an average of 1.1 million, just kind of throwing the spears, but then when I crowd controlled them, it went up to like 1.4 million. $1.5 million just because they're crowd controlled. They're chilled. When you got that chill, it adds that much extra damage. And all you have to do is hit them with the frost, man. You just run through them. Press space to dash through them. The boots give you that dash and that speed boost to get on through. You hit them with it, all that extra damage, man. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and finish up the dungeon, and yeah, let's go ahead and get out of here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this helps you kind of make sense of what I've been doing. I've been making this build live on stream. Again, a lot of people have told me there's a lot of other like Diablo websites out there that have really already made this build, if not better than what I have. But, you know, I like to make videos, and I also like to discover a lot of this stuff on my own to help others as well through my natural discovery. So I haven't looked at any of this stuff myself yet. I will be after I defeat the Echo of Lilith at level 100. I'll check out, you know, all the other builds and see what they have going on and see how mine compares. But the big thing is, you know, I had a good time making this build, and I hope that you can learn something from it as well. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for all of the love and support you've left on all of my Diablo content, both of the build guides, including this one, and all of my live streams of my Necromancer playthrough. I really appreciate all the support. Anyways, again, hope this helped, and I hope to see you soon for more. Until then, be excellent to each other.